The emergency broadcast screamed across space in a language no human had ever heard. It traveled through the darkness, carrying the last hope of a dying world. The Valerian planet was burning. Their cities fell one by one as dark creatures poured from tears in reality itself. The aliens had tried everything. Their weapons failed. Their shields broke. Their armies vanished into the void. Council leader Thelva stood in the great chamber of the Galactic Union. His 6 eyes watched the holographic display with growing terror. 12 star systems had already fallen to the void swarm. Billions of lives were gone. The military forces of 50 different species fought desperately, but they were losing. Every day brought more death. "We need help," Thelva said to the council members around him. "We need it now." A tall alien named Kelvrith shook his head. "There is no help. We have already called every member species. Everyone who can fight is already fighting." Thelvis looked at the ancient computer terminal in the corner of the room. Nobody had touched it in 300 years. It was locked behind glass with warning symbols painted in red. The label read, "Deathworlder Registry, Forbidden Access." "There is one option," Thelvis said quietly. The council chamber went silent. Everyone knew what he meant. Everyone was afraid. "You cannot be serious," Kelvrith said. "Those worlds are quarantined for good reason. The species there are too dangerous, too violent, too unpredictable. We are dying," Thelvis replied. "What choice do we have?" He walked to the terminal and broke the glass. His hand shook as he activated the old system. The screen lit up with a list of planets. Each one had danger ratings next to it. Red warnings flashed beside every name. Earth appeared at the top of the list. The danger rating was maximum. The file contained observations from probe ships that had studied the planet from a distance. Thelvis read the notes aloud. Planet classification, death world, gravity crushing, atmosphere corrosive oxygen mix, weather violent and unpredictable, dominant species humans, warning extremely aggressive, uses chemical explosives and kinetic weapons in warfare, practices sanctioned violence for entertainment, survives by consuming dead organic matter. Do not approach. "This is madness," another council member said. "These creatures will be worse than the swarm." Thelvis looked at the hologram showing another Valerian city collapsing into darkness. "Perhaps," he said, "but at least they fight." The vote was close. Some council members wanted to face extinction rather than contact Earth. But in the end, fear of the swarm won. Thelvis sent the distress signal toward the small blue world that terrified the galaxy. On Earth, Captain Jiho stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable. He was a military man with hard eyes and gray in his hair. He had fought in 3 wars and survived things that should have killed him. His ship floated in high orbit above Earth, part of humanity's small but growing space fleet. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," said Commander Yuna from her station. She was younger than Jiho, but just as sharp. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls. "It's not from any human source. The signal is alien." Jiho felt his heart beat faster. "Are you certain?" "Yes, sir." Translating now. Yuna worked for several minutes. "Captain, this is a distress call. They're asking for help. They say their worlds are being destroyed by something called the Void Swarm. They've lost billions of people." Jiho looked at the star map on the main screen. "How far?" 30 light years. We could reach them in 3 weeks using maximum hyperspace speed." Jiho touched the communication button. "Get me Admiral Park at Earth Command." Within an hour, the decision was made. Humanity would respond. 12 ships would make the journey. It was all Earth could spare. The fleet was small and the ships were old, but they were ready to fight. Jiho assembled his crew on the bridge. Pilot Taeyang sat at the helm, his hands steady on the controls. He was the best pilot in the fleet, and he knew it. Engineer Hana stood near the engine readouts. She could fix anything and often did while under fire. Lieutenant Doyen commanded the Marine Forces. 200 soldiers trained for ship-to-ship combat. Medical Officer Suman prepared the hospital bay for casualties. "Listen up," Jiho said to his crew. "We're going to war against something we don't understand. The aliens who sent this message are more advanced than us. They have better technology and bigger fleets. But they're losing. We might be flying into a fight we can't win." Nobody spoke. Nobody left their stations. "We leave in 2 hours," Jiho continued. "Call your families. Make your peace. When we jump to hyperspace, we may not come back." Taeyang smiled. "Then we better make it count, Captain." The 12 human ships gathered in orbit. Compared to the massive alien vessels described in the distress call, they looked tiny. The Indomitable was barely 300 meters long. Its hull was made of steel and carbon fiber. The weapons were simple: railguns that threw metal slugs at incredible speed, and missiles with nuclear warheads. Commander Yuna studied the alien database they had received. "Captain, I'm reading the Galactic Union's military doctrine. They use energy weapons and shields. They fight at long range and avoid ship damage at all costs. Casualties are considered unacceptable." "Interesting," Jiho said. "What about boarding actions?" Yuna looked confused. "They don't have those. The idea of soldiers fighting inside damaged ships is considered insane." Jiho smiled coldly. "Good. That gives us an advantage." The communication channel opened. An alien face appeared on screen. It was Thelvas. He looked at the human ships with his 6 eyes, and his expression showed fear. "Human vessels," Thelvas said slowly. "We did not expect you to respond so quickly. We must warn you. The Void Swarm is extremely dangerous. Perhaps you should send more ships." "This is all we have," Jiho replied. "It will be enough. You do not understand. We have lost entire fleets. Thousands of ships." "We understand perfectly," Jiho said. "You called for help." "We're coming. Send us the coordinates." Thelvas transmitted the data. Then he said something that made the bridge crew pause. "We have reviewed your weapon systems. You still use kinetic projectiles and atomic explosives. These technologies have been banned in civilized warfare for 3,000 years. They are too barbaric." Lieutenant Doyun spoke up from his station. "Barbaric works when nothing else does." Jiho nodded. "We'll see you at the front line, Council Leader." Indomitable out. The human fleet activated their hyperspace engines. Blue light surrounded each ship as they tore holes in space and jumped toward the war. Behind them, Earth continued its slow rotation, unaware that its children were about to teach the galaxy what it meant to survive on a death world. Thelvas watched the human ships disappear from his sensors. He felt a strange mixture of hope and terror. Perhaps these violent creatures from the Forbidden World could help, or perhaps he had just invited a second nightmare into the galaxy. Either way, the humans were coming, and they were bringing their barbaric weapons with them. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace into chaos. 3 weeks of travel ended in an instant, and what they saw made even the veterans go quiet. Space itself seemed wrong here. Reality had tears in it like rips in fabric. Through those tears came the Void Swarm. The creatures were massive and made no sense. They had too many limbs that bent in directions that hurt to look at. Their bodies were black and seemed to absorb light. They moved through space without engines, without any visible means of propulsion. Worst of all, they made sounds that traveled through the vacuum where no sound should exist. "Mother of God," whispered Tae Yang at his pilot station. Commander Yuna was already scanning. "I count 47 swarm entities in this sector alone." Reading massive energy signatures. "Captain, they're attacking the Valerian defense fleet." Jiho watched the battle through the view screen. The alien ships were elegant and beautiful, smooth curves covered in glowing symbols. Their energy weapons fired brilliant beams of light that should have destroyed anything they touched. But the Void Swarm creatures simply absorbed the blasts and kept coming. An alien ship exploded, then another. The Valerian fleet was dying. "Incoming transmission," Yuna reported. A new alien face appeared on screen. This one had 4 eyes and skin like blue scales. "Human vessels, this is Fleet Commander Kelvrith. You must retreat immediately. The swarm cannot be stopped. We have lost 200 ships today alone. Save yourselves while you still can." Jiho stood up. "Commander, we didn't come here to run. What are your shield frequencies?" Kelvrith looked confused. "Why does that matter? Just tell me." After receiving the data, Jiho turned to his crew. "Helm, bring us into firing range. Weapons, load railgun slugs and prepare missiles. Set the warheads to maximum yield." Kelvrith's eyes went wide. "You cannot use nuclear weapons in ship combat. The radiation alone would kill everyone in range, including your own crews." "Our ships are shielded for radiation," Jiho said calmly. "Are yours?" "No, but that is because we do not use such barbaric weapons." "Then stay behind us and watch how Deathworlders fight." The Indomitable turned toward the nearest swarm creature. It was the size of a city block, its body shifting and writhing in ways that made the crew feel sick just looking at it. Tentacles reached out toward a damaged Valerian ship. "Fire," Jiho ordered. The railgun spoke. A solid tungsten slug weighing 3 tons shot out at a significant fraction of light speed. It hit the swarm creature dead center. The impact was devastating. The creature's body exploded outward, dark matter spraying into space. It made a sound like screaming metal and began to break apart. "Target destroyed," Una reported, her voice filled with shock. "Captain, it worked. The kinetic impact damaged it where energy weapons failed." The other human ships opened fire. Railgun slugs tore through the void swarm like bullets through paper. The creatures had no defense against simple metal moving very, very fast. Explosions bloomed across the battlefield as one creature after another fell. "Impossible," Kelvrith whispered on the communication channel. "We have been fighting these things for months. How are you doing this?" Lieutenant Doyen answered from his station. "Because we learned to fight on a world that tried to kill us every day. We don't rely on shields and energy weapons. We use whatever works." A swarm creature changed tactics. It phased through space and appeared directly next to a human destroyer. Its tentacles wrapped around the ship's hull and began tearing through the armor. "The Defiant is breached," Una reported. "Multiple hull fractures. They're venting atmosphere." "Can they seal the sections?" Jiho asked. "They're trying, but the creature is inside the ship now." Kelvrith made a sound of despair. "The ship is lost. The crew must evacuate before the creature kills them all." But Jiho was already giving orders. "Doyen, take your Marines. We're docking with the Defiant, sir." Even Una looked surprised. "You heard me. Helm, bring us alongside." "Doyen, suit up. You're going hunting." 10 minutes later, Lieutenant Doyen and 40 Marines stood in the airlock. They wore combat armor that looked primitive compared to alien technology. It was just metal plates and reactive fiber, but it could withstand the vacuum of space. Each Marine carried a rifle that fired solid bullets and a blade for close combat. "Remember your training," Doyen told his squad. "These things are tough, but they can be killed. Aim for what looks like vital areas. Stay in pairs. Don't let them separate you." The airlock opened. The Marines jumped across empty space and grabbed onto the Defiant's hull. They crawled through the breach like insects, entering the damaged ship. Inside was darkness and chaos. Emergency lights flickered red. Bodies floated in zero gravity, human crew members who hadn't made it to safety. And somewhere in the corridors, the swarm creature hunted the survivors. Doyen heard it before he saw it. That wrong sound, like screaming metal mixed with whispers. His helmet radio crackled with interference. Then the creature appeared around a corner. It was smaller than the ones in space, but no less terrible. Its body filled the corridor, tentacles scraping against the walls. Parts of it phased in and out of reality. It had no face, but Doyen felt it looking at him. "Fire!" he shouted. 40 rifles opened up. Bullets tore into the creature's flesh. Dark fluid sprayed the walls. The creature screamed and lunged forward. Its tentacles grabbed a Marine and lifted him into the air. Doyen ran forward and jumped. His blade came out. A simple steel knife that humans had been using for thousands of years. He drove it into what might have been the creature's head. The blade went deep and the creature convulsed. It dropped the Marine and tried to shake Doyen off. "Keep firing," Doyen yelled. The other Marines unloaded their weapons into the creature at point-blank range. After 30 seconds of sustained fire, it finally stopped moving. Its body went still and began to dissolve into black smoke. "Target down," Doyen reported. "Sweep the ship. Find survivors." They found 12 crew members hiding in a sealed compartment. The Marines escorted them back to the Indomitable. As they crossed between ships, Doyen looked out at the battle. The human fleet was winning. Swarm creatures were dying faster than they could phase in from the void. Back on the bridge, Engineer Hana was analyzing the data. "Captain, I'm seeing something interesting. These creatures use some kind of dimensional energy to exist in our space. If we could disrupt that energy, we might be able to hurt them even more." "Can you weaponize it?" Jiho asked. Hana grinned. "Give me 6 hours and a fusion reactor, and I'll give you a bomb that will make these things wish they stayed in their own dimension." "Do it." The battle continued for 3 more hours. The human fleet lost 1 ship completely and 3 more were heavily damaged. But when it was over, every swarm creature in the sector was dead or retreating. Kelvrith contacted the Indomitable again. His expression was different now. Not quite fear, but something close to awe. "Human Captain Jiho, we have monitored your combat actions. Your tactics are extremely dangerous. You fight in unpressurized sections. You engage in close combat with the enemy. You use weapons that could destroy your own ships. This is insanity. This is survival," Jiho replied. "On Earth, we learned that sometimes you have to fight dirty to stay alive." "I have analyzed the battle data," Kelvrith continued. Something is wrong. The swarm creatures showed fear. In 6 months of combat, we have never seen them retreat. But when your Marines killed one inside a ship, the others withdrew. They are afraid of you. Medical Officer Suman spoke up. Maybe they're not used to prey that fights back. Jiho nodded. Commander Yuna, plot a course to the next swarm position. We're not stopping here. Captain, Kelvrith said quickly. You need to repair your ships. Rest your crews. You have suffered casualties. We'll rest when the war is over. Send us those coordinates, Commander. Kelvrith did as asked, but his hands were shaking. He had just watched the humans do what the entire Galactic Union could not. They had made the Void Swarm retreat, but the cost had been terrible by alien standards. Dozens of humans were dead. Ships were damaged. And yet the humans acted as if this was normal. What kind of world created such creatures, Kelvrith wondered. What horrors had they survived to become this way? He did not know that on Earth humans called this Tuesday. This was just another day of fighting against impossible odds. Because on a death world you either learned to fight or you died. The humans had learned very well. News of the human victory spread through the Galactic Union like wildfire. Council chambers across dozens of worlds discussed the impossible reports. The Deathworlders had done what entire fleets could not. They had made the Void Swarm retreat. Commander Yuna stood in the war room of the Indomitable, surrounded by holographic displays. She had been working for 3 days with minimal sleep, studying every piece of data from the battles. Her eyes were red, but her mind was sharp. I think I understand why we're winning, she told Captain Jiho. The other senior officers gathered around her. The swarm uses dimensional phasing and energy absorption. They're perfectly adapted to fight the way the Galactic Union fights. Long-range energy weapons, shields, defensive positions. But they've never encountered anyone who fights like us. Explain, Jiho said. Yuna brought up a tactical display. We use kinetic weapons. Simple mass times velocity. The swarm can't absorb that because it's not energy, it's just matter moving fast. We fight at close range where their phasing ability is less useful. We board damaged ships and fight in corridors. We accept casualties that other species find unthinkable. I'm calling it the Death World Doctrine. Pilot Taiyang leaned forward.
So we're winning because we're crazy?
No, Yuna said. We're winning because Earth taught us to adapt or die. Every tactic we use would get you killed on a peaceful world. But on Earth, these are survival skills. Lieutenant Doyen nodded. My Marines were trained for urban combat in zero gravity. We practice fighting in damaged ships because that's realistic. The aliens don't train for that because they can't imagine it happening. Exactly, Yuna said. I've been developing new tactics based on this principle. Tactics that would be considered war crimes by galactic standards. Show me, Jiho ordered. Over the next week, the human fleet pushed deeper into swarm territory. More alien survivors joined them. Ships from a dozen different species fell in behind the human vessels, following their lead. The fleet grew to 30 ships, though only 12 were human. Kelvrith commanded the alien contingent from his ship. He watched in horror and fascination as the humans implemented Commander Yuna's new tactics. The first was called ramming speed. When a swarm creature proved too tough for railguns, the humans would simply crash a ship into it at high velocity. The ship would be destroyed, but so would the creature. The crew would evacuate in pods at the last second. This is madness, Kelvrith said when he first saw it. You're destroying your own vessels. A ship can be replaced, Jiho replied calmly. A world full of people cannot. The second tactic was even worse. The humans would deliberately let swarm creatures board their ships, then seal the sections and flood them with radiation. The creatures would die and the humans would simply repair the damaged areas afterward. You're using your own ships as traps, Kelvrith said. Don't you care about the danger? Of course we care, said Engineer Hana. That's why we win. We understand the danger and do it anyway. The third tactic came from Pilot Taiyang. He discovered that the swarm creatures had trouble tracking fast-moving targets through planetary atmospheres. So he started using gas giants and stormy worlds as cover. I'm going to do something called atmospheric skimming, Taiyang announced before one battle. I'll fly through the upper atmosphere of that gas giant, use the storms to hide, then pop up behind the swarm position. Kelvrith checked the data. The atmospheric pressure will crush your ship. The lightning storms will fry your systems. The gravity will tear you apart, Taiyang grinned. Only if I do it wrong. He dove the Indomitable into the gas giant's atmosphere at a steep angle. The ship shook violently. Lightning played across the hull. Alarms screamed warnings, but Taeyang's hands were steady on the controls. He had flown through Earth's hurricanes during training. This was just a bigger storm. The ship burst out of the atmosphere right behind 3 swarm creatures. They never saw it coming. Railgun fire destroyed all 3 before they could react. Impossible, Kelvrith whispered. Difficult, Taeyang corrected. Not impossible. 3 weeks into the campaign, the human fleet discovered something important. Engineer Hana had been analyzing the swarm's movement patterns. She found the source. Captain, look at this, she said, showing Jiho her data. Every swarm creature comes from the same location. A dimensional rift in the Kelo system. That's their entry point into our universe. Can we close it? Jiho asked. Maybe, but we'd need to get right up to it. And according to these readings, there's something massive on the other side. I think we're looking at the swarm's central intelligence. Jiho called a meeting with all ship captains, human and alien. They gathered via holographic communication in a virtual war room. Kelvrith represented the alien vessels. We found the source of the swarm, Jiho explained. A dimensional rift. If we can collapse it, we cut off their reinforcements and possibly kill their central mind. How do we collapse a dimensional rift? Asked one of the alien captains. We blow it up, Jiho said simply. Silence filled the communication channel. You cannot be serious, Kelvrith finally said. Dimensional rifts are stabilized by exotic matter and quantum forces. To collapse one, you would need to detonate an explosion inside the rift itself. That means sending ships through to the other side. Exactly, Jiho said. That is suicide. Dimensional travel without proper shielding is instantly fatal. The other side could be anywhere. It could be the vacuum between universes. It could be the heart of a star. Your crew would die the moment they crossed over. Then we better be quick, Jiho replied. We'll modify our shields to last 90 seconds in dimensional space. That should be enough time to plant explosives and get out. Hana nodded. I can wire our remaining nuclear warheads into a chain reaction. If we detonate them all at once inside the rift, the explosion should collapse the dimensional barrier. The alien captains all refused to participate. The plan was too dangerous, too insane, but every human captain volunteered immediately. We'll need a strike team, Jiho said. 5 ships. The Indomitable will lead. Taeyang, you're flying. Hana, you're coming to plant the charges. Doyen, bring your best Marines. We'll need to hold off the swarm while Hana works. Communications Officer Nari spoke up. She was quiet most of the time, but now her voice was firm. Captain, I want to record final messages from the crew. In case we don't make it back. Jiho looked around the room. His crew looked back at him with determined faces. They knew this might be a one-way trip. They did it anyway. Approved, Jiho said. Everyone gets 30 minutes to record a message home. Then we prep for the mission. Medical Officer Suman moved through the ship checking on the crew. She found young Marines writing letters to families they might never see again. She found engineers saying goodbye to friends. Everyone was scared, but nobody backed down. Why do you do this? One alien crew member asked Suman. Why do humans risk so much? Suman thought about Earth. She thought about the ice ages and plagues and wars that nearly destroyed humanity. She thought about how her species survived by refusing to give up no matter how bad things got. Because someone has to, she said. And if not us, then who? The strike team prepared their ships, 5 human vessels against whatever waited on the other side of reality. The odds were terrible. The chances of success were slim. But the humans had faced bad odds before. Specialist Hyunwoo, an infiltration expert, helped Hana prepare the explosives. He was small and quick, trained to slip into enemy positions unnoticed. I'll help you plant these charges, he said. If things go wrong, I can buy you time. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Hana replied. The fleet approached the Kelo system. The dimensional rift was visible even from a distance. It looked like a wound in space, a tear that showed glimpses of something beyond. Colors that didn't exist swirled around its edges. The swarm creatures poured through it in endless streams. There's the target, Taeyang said quietly. Jiho looked at his crew. These people had followed him into hell. Now he was asking them to go even further. All ships, this is Captain Jiho, he said over the fleet-wide channel. The strike team is going through that rift. We're going to blow it shut. If we don't come back, finish the fight. Make sure the swarm dies, Kelvrith's voice came through. Human fleet, we will hold the line here. We will make sure nothing follows you through. And if you do not return, he paused. We will tell your world that you died as warriors. Appreciated, Commander. Jiho said. Strike team, form up. Let's show these creatures what happens when they threaten a Deathworlders galaxy. The 5 human ships broke formation and accelerated toward the rift. Behind them, the mixed fleet of human and alien vessels engaged the swarm, keeping them busy. Ahead, the dimensional tear grew larger and larger in their view screens. Shields modified and holding, Hana reported. 90-second countdown starts the moment we cross over. Then we better make every second count, Jiho said. The ships plunged into the rift. Reality twisted around them. And on the other side, they found horror beyond imagination. The 5 ships emerged into a nightmare. This wasn't space as they knew it. The laws of physics seemed broken here. Up and down had no meaning. Distance changed depending on how you looked at it. Colors existed that human eyes weren't designed to see, making the crew's vision blur and their heads ache. Where are we? Taeyang asked, struggling to keep the ship steady. The controls responded strangely, as if the ship itself was confused. Commander Yuna checked her instruments, but the readings made no sense. We're in a dimensional pocket. Another universe, maybe, or the space between universes. My sensors can't figure it out. 90 seconds until shield failure, Hana announced. Clock is ticking. Captain Jiho looked at the view screen. Through the distorted space, he could see something massive. It was the source of the swarm, a creature so large it might have been a living world. Millions of the smaller swarm entities swarmed around it like insects around a hive. That's the target, Jiho said. Take us in. 2 of the human ships exploded immediately. Not from enemy fire, but because the dimensional stress was too much. Their shields failed, and the ships simply came apart as different parts of them existed in different states of reality at the same time. 3 ships left, Yuna reported, her voice tight. 70 seconds on the shields. Lieutenant Doyen stood in the Marine Bay with his soldiers. They could feel the ship shaking, could hear the groaning of metal that shouldn't be under this kind of stress. Listen up, he shouted over the noise. We're going out there. We're going to hold off anything that tries to stop the engineers. We might not make it back, but we're going to finish this mission. Understood? Sir, yes, sir, the Marines shouted back. The Indomitable shuddered as swarm creatures slammed into it. Taeyang spun the ship, firing railguns at anything that got close. But there were too many. They came from all directions, phasing in and out of reality. 60 seconds, Hana said. I need to get outside to plant the charges. Do it, Jiho ordered. Doyen, provide cover. The airlock opened. Hana pushed out into the dimensional space wearing a reinforced suit. Behind her came 40 Marines, including Doyen and Specialist Hyunwoo. They used jetpacks to maneuver in the zero gravity, moving toward the massive rift anchor point that Hana had identified. The experience was terrifying. In normal space, the vacuum was silent and empty. Here they could hear things. Whispers in languages that predated thought, screaming that came from everywhere and nowhere. The dimensional space was trying to drive them insane. Focus on the mission, Doyen commanded. Don't look at the big one. Don't listen to the sounds. Just protect Hana. Swarm creatures materialized around them, but in this space they were slower, more vulnerable. They were in their home dimension, but the humans didn't belong here, and that somehow made them harder to affect. The Marines opened fire, their bullets working even better than in normal space. Hana reached the rift anchor. It looked like a knot in reality, a place where this dimension connected to theirs. She began placing nuclear warheads around it, wiring them together into a chain reaction. Her hands worked quickly despite the way space twisted around her fingers. 45 seconds. Yuna's voice crackled in their helmets. Back on the Indomitable, Jiho watched his people work. They were so small compared to the massive swarm intelligence, like ants attacking an elephant. But ants could kill an elephant if there were enough of them, and they were determined enough. A swarm creature bigger than a battleship came at them. Taeyang couldn't dodge it in time. The creature slammed into the ship's side, tearing through the hull. Explosive decompression ripped through 3 decks. 20 crew members died instantly. Hull breach on decks 5 through 7, Yuna shouted. We're venting atmosphere. Seal it, Jiho ordered. The creature is inside the ship. Jiho grabbed a rifle from the weapon rack. Then we fight it inside. Medical team, get the wounded to safety. Everyone else with me. The captain led a desperate battle through the corridors of his own ship. The swarm creature filled the passageways, its body too large for the space but existing there anyway. Crew members fought it with whatever they had, rifles, tools, their bare hands. Outside, Hana finished placing the last warhead. "Charges set," she reported. 30 seconds until we need to evacuate, but the way back to the ships was blocked. Dozens of swarm creatures had materialized between the Marines and safety. They formed a living wall, cutting off the retreat. Hyunwoo looked at Doyen. "I'll clear a path. Get Hana back to the ship." "Negative," Doyen said. "We go together." "There's no time," Hyunwoo replied. He checked his weapon. "Someone needs to stay and hold them off. Make sure Hana gets to the detonator. I'm smallest and fastest. I can buy you maybe 10 seconds. That should be enough." Before Doyen could argue, Hyunwoo activated his jetpack and launched himself at the swarm wall. He fired his rifle as he flew, screaming a battle cry. He crashed into the creatures and disappeared into their mass, but his sacrifice created an opening. "Move," Doyen ordered. The Marines dragged Hana through the gap. Behind them, they heard Hyunwoo's gun firing until it went silent. They didn't look back. 20 seconds. Yuna's voice was desperate now. Medical Officer Suman had stayed on the Indomitable to treat the wounded from the hull breach. She worked in the medical bay while the ship shook around her, stabilizing injuries, preparing people for emergency evacuation. She heard the sounds of fighting getting closer. The swarm creature was winning. It was pushing through the ship toward the critical systems. If it reached the reactor, the ship would explode. Suman made a decision. She grabbed a medical laser meant for surgery and ran toward the sounds of battle. She found Captain Jiho and 5 crew members making a last stand in a corridor. The swarm creature filled the space ahead of them, advancing slowly. "Get to the escape pods," Suman told the wounded crew members. "I'll help the captain." "You're a doctor, not a soldier," one of them said. "On Earth, we're all soldiers when we need to be," she replied. The crew evacuated. Suman stood next to Jiho, her surgical laser held in shaking hands. "I'm not leaving you here alone, Captain." Jiho nodded. He didn't waste time arguing. "Then help me kill this thing." Outside, the Marines reached the second ship. Hana scrambled through the airlock. "Get us out of here!" she shouted. "We're still waiting for the captain," the pilot replied. 10 seconds. Yuna's voice cut through. "Shields are failing." On the Indomitable, Jiho and Suman emptied their weapons into the swarm creature. It was dying, but not fast enough. The thing lunged forward. Jiho pushed Suman out of the way and the creature grabbed him instead. "Captain," Suman screamed. Jiho felt the creature's tentacles wrap around him. They were cold and wrong, like touching death itself. But he smiled grimly and pulled the detonator from his belt. Not the main detonator for the nuclear warheads, but the one for the Indomitable's self-destruct. 5 seconds. Yuna shouted. "All ships, jump now," Jiho ordered into his radio. His hand hovered over the detonator button. "Jump!" Taeyang hit the emergency hyperspace jump from the second ship. The remaining human vessels tore through reality, escaping the dimensional pocket. They left behind the Indomitable, Captain Jiho, and anyone still aboard. "Wait," Suman cried. "We can't leave them." "We have to," Yuna said, tears in her eyes. "Shield failure in 3, 2, 1. In the dimensional pocket, Jiho watched his ships escape. Good. They would live. The mission would succeed. He looked at the swarm creature holding him and smiled. "You wanted to come to our universe," Jiho said. "Let me show you what happens when you threaten humanity." He pressed the self-destruct button. The Indomitable's reactor went critical. The explosion was massive, tearing through the dimensional space like a shockwave. It triggered Hana's planted nuclear warheads. They detonated in a chain reaction, each explosion feeding the next. The dimensional rift began to collapse. The massive swarm intelligence screamed, a sound that echoed across dimensions. It tried to phase away but couldn't move fast enough. The rift closed around it like a closing door, cutting it in half. Both halves were trapped in different realities and began to die. In normal space, the remaining human ships burst out of the rift, just as it sealed behind them. The tear in reality sewed itself shut, leaving only empty space where it had been. Swarm creatures throughout the galaxy suddenly stopped moving. They floated dead in space, their connection to their central intelligence severed. The invasion was over. Kelvrith watched the human ships emerge. He counted them. 2 ships out of 5. He felt sorrow for the first time when thinking about the violent Deathworlders. "Human vessels," he said softly. "Report status." Yuna's voice came through the communication channel. She was crying, but her words were clear. "Mission successful. The rift is closed. The swarm is dead," she paused. "But Captain Jiho is gone. The Indomitable is gone. We lost so many. They died as warriors, Kelvrith said. They died saving the galaxy. Taeyang sat at the pilot controls of his ship, his hand still shaking from the dimensional jump. Hana stood behind him, checking the sensor data to confirm the mission's success. Doyen gathered his surviving Marines, counting who had made it back. So many empty spaces where friends should have been. Medical Officer Suman sat alone in the medical bay. She had refused to leave Jiho, but in the end she had no choice. The captain had made sure she survived. The journey home took 4 weeks. The 2 remaining human ships limped through space, their hulls scarred and their crews exhausted. Behind them followed 15 alien vessels, survivors who had fought alongside the Deathworlders. Together they had lost hundreds of ships and thousands of lives. But they had won. Commander Yuna sat in the captain's chair on the lead ship. It felt wrong. This should have been Jiho's chair, his command, his victory. But Jiho was gone along with so many others. She had his command codes now, his responsibilities. She would carry them even though they felt too heavy. Approaching the Galactic Council's main station, Taeyang reported from the pilot station. His voice was quiet. He hadn't joked or smiled since they left the Kalos system. The station was enormous, a city in space where representatives from 100 species worked to govern the Union. Its towers gleamed in the light of 3 suns. It was beautiful and peaceful, everything the war zone had not been. "We're being hailed," said Communications Officer Nari. She had dark circles under her eyes from recording the final messages of crew members who never came home. "The council wants us to dock. They're calling an emergency session." "Then let's not keep them waiting," Yuna said. The surviving crew prepared to meet the council. Medical Officer Suman checked everyone's health, making sure they could walk and talk despite their exhaustion. Engineer Hana gathered all the technical data from the mission. Lieutenant Doyen assembled his remaining Marines in dress uniforms, though there were so few of them now. The council chamber was vast and circular, with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Representatives from dozens of species filled the seats. Some looked human, some looked like insects, some were clouds of gas in containment suits. All of them went silent when the humans entered. Council leader Thelvas stood at the center platform. His 6 eyes studied the humans carefully. "Commander Yuna of Earth, you and your people are called before this council to give account of your actions." Yuna walked to the platform. She looked up at all the alien faces staring down at her. Some showed gratitude, some showed curiosity, but many showed fear. "The Void Swarm has been eliminated," Yuna reported. "We sealed the dimensional rift and severed their connection to this universe. The threat is over. We have monitored your broadcasts," Thelva said. "We saw the battles. We reviewed the tactical data." He paused. "We also saw the casualties. Out of 12 human ships, only 2 returned. Over 800 humans died in less than 2 months of combat." "They died saving your worlds," Yuna replied. "Yes," Thelvis agreed, "and we are grateful. But Commander, your species frightens us. You use tactics we abandoned thousands of years ago. You fight with weapons we consider barbaric. You board damaged ships and fight hand-to-hand with enemies that can phase through reality. You flew into a dimensional rift knowing you would probably die. What manner of beings are you?" Yuna looked at Pilot Taeyang, at Engineer Hana, at Medical Officer Suman, at Lieutenant Doyun. She saw the exhaustion on their faces, the grief for lost friends, the scars from battles that would never fully heal. But she also saw strength, the same strength that had carried humanity through every disaster Earth had thrown at them. "We are survivors," Yuna said simply. "That's all we've ever been. Survivors," Thelvis repeated. "Is that how you justify such violence?" "Violence." Lieutenant Doyen spoke up, his voice hard. "We didn't ask for this war. We didn't create the swarm. You called us for help because everyone else was losing. We came because people were dying. We fought because it was the right thing to do. And yes, we lost friends, good people who will never go home. But we stopped the swarm, we saved millions of lives. If that's violence, then I'm proud to be violent." The council chamber erupted in discussion. Some species agreed with Doyen. Others argued that the humans were too dangerous to allow into civilized space. The debate went on for hours. Finally, Thelvis called for silence. "We must make a decision. Should humanity be welcomed into the Galactic Union, or should Earth remain quarantined as a death world?" "Before you vote," Yuna said, "I want to show you something." She activated a holographic display. Images appeared above the platform. They showed human ships helping repair alien stations. They showed human engineers teaching other species how to build stronger shields. They showed human doctors treating wounded aliens and human soldiers standing guard over refugee camps. While we fought the swarm, we also helped rebuild, Yuna explained. Captain Jiho gave orders that every world we liberated should receive aid. We shared our technology, our medical knowledge, our resources, not because we wanted something in return, but because it was right. Engineer Hana stepped forward. Earth is a harsh world. It tried to kill our species for millions of years. Ice ages, diseases, predators, natural disasters. We survived by adapting, by fighting, by never giving up. But Earth also taught us something else. It taught us that life is precious. Every life, human or alien. When you called for help, we came not because we wanted to prove we were strong, but because we couldn't stand by and watch people die. Medical Officer Suman spoke next. I'm a doctor. I took an oath to preserve life. During this war, I treated humans and aliens alike. I watched people die who shouldn't have died. Young soldiers with families waiting at home. Civilians caught in the crossfire. Captain Jiho, who sacrificed himself so we could escape. Her voice broke. Yes, we're dangerous. Yes, we know how to fight, but we fight to protect, not to conquer. Pilot Taeyang added. You think our tactics are crazy. Maybe they are. But when your back's against the wall and nothing else works, crazy becomes smart. We learned that on Earth. And we're willing to teach it to anyone who wants to survive the next impossible threat. Because there will be a next one. There always is. The council chamber was quiet now. The representatives looked at each other uncertain. Then Fleet Commander Kelvrith stood up. He was not a council member, but he had fought alongside the humans. I have a statement to make, he said. I was terrified when I first met the humans. They seemed like monsters. Their weapons were brutal. Their tactics were suicidal. They fought in conditions that should have killed them. But I watched them for 2 months. I saw them risk everything to save alien civilians. I saw them share their supplies when they barely had enough for themselves. I saw Captain Jiho sacrifice his life so others could live. These are not monsters. These are warriors with honor. I vote to welcome them. Other voices joined in. Species that had fought alongside humanity spoke up. They told stories of human bravery, of sacrifices made, of friendships formed in the heat of battle. Slowly, the tide turned. Finally, Thelvis raised his hand for silence. The vote is called. All in favor of welcoming humanity into the Galactic Union with full membership status? The majority voted yes. Not everyone, but enough. Then it is decided, Thelvis declared. Humanity is hereby granted membership in the Galactic Union, with a special designation, Protector Species. You will be called upon when other methods have failed. You will train our forces in survival warfare. You will be humanity, the Deathworlders who saved the galaxy. But then Thelvis added, however, there are conditions. Your military expansion will be monitored. Your weapons development will be regulated. We welcome you, but we also remain cautious of you. This is not an insult. It is simply reality, Yuna nodded. We understand. Earth has its own history of wars and conflicts. We know what happens when violence goes unchecked. We'll accept your conditions and we'll prove we deserve your trust. The ceremony ended. The humans were given quarters on the station while diplomatic arrangements were finalized. But Yuna couldn't rest. She stood at an observation window looking out at the stars. Suman found her there. Commander, you should sleep. I keep thinking about Jiho, Yuna said. And Hyunwoo. And all the others we lost. Did we do the right thing? We saved the galaxy, Suman replied. What else could we have done? Maybe there was another way. A way with fewer casualties. Maybe, Suman admitted, but we didn't have time to find it. We did what we had to do with what we had. That's all anyone can ask. Over the next months, humanity's role in the galaxy expanded. Earth became a training center, where alien soldiers learned survival tactics. Human engineers shared their knowledge of kinetic weapons and defensive systems. Human doctors established hospitals on a dozen worlds. A memorial was built in orbit around Earth. It listed every species lost to the Void Swarm, and every human who died fighting to stop them. Captain Jiho's name was at the top. Along with a simple inscription, he faced the darkness so others could live in light. Lieutenant Doyon was promoted to captain and given command of Earth's expanded defense fleet. Pilot Taeyang became an instructor, teaching young pilots maneuvers that other species considered impossible. Engineer Hana led research teams developing new technologies that combined human and alien knowledge. Medical Officer Suman opened a hospital that treated any species, free of charge. Commander Yuna stayed in command of Earth's diplomatic mission. She worked to build trust between humanity and the other species. It was slow work. Many aliens still feared the Deathworlders. But gradually, they learned that humans could be gentle as well as fierce, kind as well as strong. 5 years after the war, Yuna stood before the council again,